welcome back to another episode of Beat a Bagel. And, of course, I have with me our boy Ian.
Hi, Ian.
So, we have already reviewed a few bagel places. Wanted more malt, didn't get the malt, had some good seasoning. Just, I wasn't really finding what I wanted. I mean, I found the right bagel shape, I found the right bagel size. What I didn't get was that New York enigmatic bagel flavor of, it could be sourdough, could be a pretzel, could be something. So I decided to do something crazy, which is I set up and rearranged my entire kitchen so that I could make my own version of bagels. So I guess we're going to talk through the process of what I did. To make the bagels, the really important thing, what a lot of people don't get, people that cook get it, but you have to make a fermenting starter. In French they call it a pouliche, but it's basically a sponge, and it creates that sourdough feeling. So, and sourdough flavor, I'm sure you'll get the feeling. So I'm going to talk about the ingredients that go into making this spongy starter. So right here is our didactic malt powder. Excuse me, it's diastatic malt powder. My bad on that one. And this is the ingredient that I believe a lot of people around this area are leaving out. And I don't really know why, because it just creates that really nice je ne sais quoi of there's malt in the bagel. So that's that. The next thing, I have 2 bottles of water here. One, I just found these in the supermarket last night because the water is extremely important. In fact, we're going to do other episodes later on where I'm going to bring in experts and we're going to talk about what goes in water and what kind of water you should use for a bagel. So I found this one called Core. And what I liked about it, it's 7.4 pH, perfectly balanced water that undergoes a reverse osmosis process. And I like that because what that basically means is everything comes out of that water. But what they did also is once they did the reverse osmosis and got everything out, they added some minerals and some electrolytes to them. And the New York water that we love for bagels actually picks up a lot of minerals along the way. I don't know if they're the same minerals in this, but I just like the idea of a really nice pH balanced water. I don't have to worry if it's too hard, too soft, too anything, because it's perfectly pH'd. So I decided to go with that instead of the Fiji water, but I've heard really good things about this water. So maybe in our future episode, we're going to compare waters. So again, I'll bring in an expert for that. The next thing, of course, is we have to use yeast, because yeast is the thing that comes to life that makes it's the leavening agent that makes the bread rise. And of course, we have already our pre-measured bread flour. Now, this is King Arthur's flour. This flour is unbleached and it's high gluten, high protein. And you want the highest gluten, high protein flour when you're making bagels. And these are our ingredients, again, to make our sponge, our pouliche, our fermented thing. And what I'd like to do now is I'm going to reveal this thing and I'm going to let Ian take a nice big smell of this amazingly fragrant starter. So here's the part where I called Ian up, and you can see Ian looking his usual amazing self on camera. And we are going to reveal this starter, which has been fermenting for probably 10 hours. I probably fermented it for too long, but it doesn't matter because it's the souring agent that is going to give that sour edge to the bagel, but the bagel won't taste sour in the final product. Okay, so Ian, a nice big sniff, and here you go.
Cool. Yeah.
What's cool about it?
It's not at all as scary as I may have been led to believe. It's kind of like a light beer, but probably a little more interesting than that, just because it isn't really.
It could be.
Wow,
It could be a Budweiser.
I can smell that over here.
Cool.
Yeah. So you get it. You get that
Everything's
yeasty
cool.
beer smell sour thing, right?
Yes, I do.
All right. Awesome. And there it is, and you can see all the porous holes in it. So Ian and I were talking a minute ago about why it's a sponge. If you look at it, it's got those bubbles, and it's got a spongy look to it.
Uh-huh.
So there you go on the sponge. We're gonna just start doing this thing. So again, about the sponge, I'm gonna pour the sponge in, but I wanna tell you what went into the sponge. And by the way, I always quote my sources. I got this recipe from a great video you should watch from Chef Mark Strasberg. It's a 9-minute video on a real New York bagel. But he adapted this recipe from a book written by Jeffrey Hamelman. So if you look up those two sources, you'll find the recipe is pretty close, but you know me, I always have to put a little twist of my own in there, okay? So let's start with the sponge. Sponge is going in, and we're gonna get it all in there. You can see it's real kind of gooey and fermented. You can't see that, but you could. I could smell it from here. Cha, you could smell it, right?
Oh yeah,
Yep.
wonderful smell.
Yeah, it's kind of like Ian said. It smells like a beer, which is interesting. All right, I think we got most of this out of here. All right. So now here's where the love begins. Okay, so we got the sponge inside. And now I obviously have to add the rest of the ingredients. So we are going to go with basically 10 ounces of water. And we're going to use that same water I used before, the core water, to be consistent. So here goes our water. That was our core water standing right in front of me. Okay. Now we're going to add more, 3/4 of a cup of yeast. So in other words, when I did the sponge before, I used 1/4 of a teaspoon. I took it out of this, so now I'm just going to add the rest of the yeast right in there. So that's good to go. Now we add the rest of the flour, okay? And the flour, 655 grams or roughly 23 ounces. So we're just going to get all that in there. Now we add the magical ingredient, the diastatic malt. The stuff dreams are truly made of. So we're going to put that right in there. So we've got our malt in there now. And then what I want to do to be smart is I want to move this over. You really can't see it, but don't worry about that for now. I want to put the salt away from the yeast because salt will kill the yeast. So I'm just going to move it over, and that actually should be good enough. All right, so let me get that salt in here, which is 17 grams or roughly 4.5 teaspoons of salt. And here, if you notice, I'm going to put it right on the other side of that. And you know what? We are ready to start mixing. So I'm going to use my lovely KitchenAid mixer. I love this thing. And get this on there. And I'm going to let this go at a very low speed for maybe about 5 minutes. And here we go. So it's been going for about 4 minutes now. So what I want to do is I want to put it on a higher speed for maybe about another 4 or 5 minutes. I don't want to overdo the dough, but I do want the dough to come together and be kind of firm. So when it's firm, I can take it out and I can push my thumb in it and it will make like a little indentation, like a fingerprint, and then it'll pop back out. And that's how I know it's ready. So here it goes at high speed, and maybe I'll get flour all over me. So I think I'm in my last 20 seconds of mixing. I mean, we're gonna find out if it's right or not. So let's shut this thing off. All right, and let's see if the dough is where I want it. Whoops. All right, so let's see. It's still feeling a little gooey. It's not firm enough. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to pull it off the paddle here, and then I'm just going to just knead it by hand, I guess, because it's close. It should just be firmer, and I don't want to keep diluting it with flour. I mean, you can see it's got, you know, it's pretty glutinous. Or glutinous. Or gluttonous or glutinous, it's either way. So let's, you know what, let's just pour the thing out onto the counter. Probably the way the old school guys did it is they probably didn't have one of these mixers. Get it out of here. Look at that. It's definitely a messy dough. Should be firmer though. So what I might have to do is just roll more flour in here. Let's get more of it. Let's just get more flour in here. Why not? Because all it has to do is firm up. I feel like a dough now.
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
This is, I think we're close. I just needed to add more flour.
Yep.
Maybe I could get the flour from this counter. Okay, so I'm doing this by hand, and I realized that adding a little more flour kind of reminds me of my pizza making days. It's starting to get where I want it to get. And I think that starter, I think what makes this hard to work with, unlike a pizza dough, is when you have that starter in there, that starter is sour and it's gooey and it's wet and it adds a wet content. This is actually starting to look like a dough, and you can see because it's not sticking to my hand as much as it was before. So I'm going to put a little more flour, like this area flour, they call it bench flour. You're supposed to be working on a bench. And I'm just going to do more of it around here. And I think we're going to be good to go, because once I get this where I want to get it, then I got to let it proof for probably about 2 hours, and then we'll see. Now this is that starting to look like a dough to you?
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
You know? Hey, you worked in a bakery, you know.
Yep.
Charlie's got bakery skills, everyone.
I do. Coffee Cup Bakeries.
Yeah.
1970s.
Oh yeah.
Put
Hey,
myself through school working there.
That's right. Hey Ian, come over here for a second. I want Ian to like poke this dough and feel the texture. Yeah, come on down. I think we're really close.
Go left.
Yeah, so, I mean, we're super close.
Spin.
All right, poke it with your finger.
Right.
No, don't use the middle finger. There are children watching. Use your thumb.
Come on, man.
Just take
All
a
right,
step.
okay.
Cool.
You know what? I think we're close. Here,
Excellent.
stand over here a second.
That's it.
Poke it with your thumb.
Yeah.
Let's see if it indents.
All right.
Ready? I think we're close, Cha.
Yeah,
but-
I gave it sort of a firm poke.
Yeah. I think
Not like a jab, but, you know.
Yeah, I think we need a little more flour. I just think we're almost there. So now it's definitely where I want it to be. So here goes the thumb. Is it bouncing back?
Yep.
It is. Okay, so here's the part. I'm just going to stick it in a bowl,
Good.
and then I'm going to cover this, and we got to let this go for 2 hours. So the question is, what are we going to do for 2 hours? Maybe we can find something musical to do.
The bagel. The bagel. The bagel. The bagel.